Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Nomad CEO. I'm here with a new guest, James Davis, and I'm very honored and excited about having him on the show. And so, yeah, thank you so much for being on the show, James. I'm going to ask you the same question I'm always asking all of my guests, which is what was your pivotal moment? What was your transformation on your
Wow.
journey?
There's more than one actually, Roman. So
Yeah.
I think my midlife was characterized by quite a few pivotal moments. So I was left the UK and moved to Ibiza to set up a retreats business.
Where?
Ibiza in Spain.
Oh, yeah, the party
Yeah.
island.
The party island, yeah. But I
Yeah.
was on the other side doing wellness retreats for holistic wellness retreats. And I moved there with my wife. And then we separated and it came out of the blue for me. So suddenly I found myself living in a foreign country, running a business, separated in my mid 40s. And I was just like, my goodness, where do I go from here? You can imagine, because it came out of the blue for me completely. So my confidence was on the floor. I was lucky that it kind of came at the end of the season. So I had a bit of time to try and reintegrate. But yeah, the season came around fast. So then I was having to be running the business, managing my team, being there for the clients, fronting up. I was kind of all smiling, happy, helping everyone else, coaching them, and then just kind of going home and like, where do I go from here? So that was definitely a pivotal point for me. And I had to go away and do a lot of work on that, on myself there, and kind of be honest about where things might have gone wrong for me and work on getting my confidence back because it was a long-term relationship and being that age, suddenly being single again, I was just kind of like, oh, well, who wants me now, right? What have I got to offer? So that was a whole process. My next pivotal moment, I guess, came. So the short version of that is,
How long ago was that?
so that was in the 2014,
It's
2000,
already
10 years ago. So then I met my new wife and after a period of time and we got together and then we worked together and that's been really amazing. What the thing we learned though was she'd come out of the separation as well and we both thought we'd worked on our baggage, but of course there was lots more to unpack, which was a lot of fun. But we carried on running the retreats business that we had. But we started actually because many of our clients were midlife. So we started the podcast, the Midlife Mentors, talking about what's going on for people at midlife, why you might be feeling this way, how your hormones are affecting you, the psychological pressure, etc. So we had that. But of course, in 2020, just as we were shaping up for our best ever season of retreats, we're like, oh, this is it. We've finally like cracked it here. We put on the most number of retreats. It's 85% booked for the season. And of course, we know the world then shut down for 2 years. A long story short, we ended up moving from, beautiful place in Ibiza with a roof terrace and da 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 to a studio flat in London with the two of us and a dog locked down. So we had to pivot, and we did pivot by creating a coaching program, rolling that out. We now coach clients. I do coach private clients, and we work with organizations. So I've written the book, and that came out of another pivot. So I'm telling you a lot of pivots here. So pivot number two was kind of the COVID thing and losing the retreats business. And then I started to do more corporate work, and I was working for a big city financial firm, running a whole men's health program. And one of the things we were talking about was andropause and low testosterone, and a load of other things, stress and how that impacts you. And at the end, someone asked me, "said This has been great, but where's all this information in one book?" And I was like, "Oh, you know what? It doesn't exist." And at the time, I was actually in a bit of a slump myself. So I think this was about 2020 maybe. I noticed I just kind of lost a lot of motivation. I was feeling low. I was starting to isolate. Didn't really want to do much. And I thought, this is really interesting. This is classic symptoms I'm exhibiting here that I talk about to other people. I need to get my head around this, make some changes. And that was really the spur for writing the book, because I know before this started, we were talking about the truly horrific suicide rates for men, and particularly midlife men. So in the
horrific.
UK, yeah, in the UK, and I think the US is the same, and probably across Europe, the highest suicide cohort is midlife men, and their suicide rate is almost 5 times that of women of all ages. So
Yeah.
it's a big problem, and I think what I saw, I'm very privileged. The work I do going to organisations in the UK, at least, there's been a big uptick in awareness of the menopause, and I do a lot of work around the menopause, and I go and talk to male audiences about menopause allyships. They can understand what's going on for women. But I was like, but this is missing for men, because men are being affected hormonally as well. Plus we've got these psychological pressures that people of our generation maybe have. We were brought up not to express our emotions, maybe to be strong and silent, you know, keep our problems to ourselves, all that kind of stuff, which is admirable but not quite helpful. So all of that was kind of the spur for writing the book, really, to help men understand why they could be feeling the way they're feeling, what's driving that, and what they can do about it. Because something I hear when I talk to midlife men is that I just feel very alone with it, and I don't really understand what's happening.
Yeah. I think, well, first of all, I just want to mention that just a few days ago I was interviewing another fake figure from the UK, James Sutton. You might know him.
I recognize the name, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a TV actor. He's pretty famous in the UK, I think. And he has also a group. His group is called the Male Mind Matters podcast. The Male Mind Matters podcast, and
Okay.
he's well known in the UK, I think. Outside, I don't know. And so we talked about the same issue, basically and this was actually one of my, well, at least I haven't published the episode, not because it just happened like 3 days ago, I think.
Yeah.
But I think it was one of my best podcasts so far, because we had such an engaging. We did not agree on. There were quite a few things where I could tell that there was a difference in a little bit, because I'm also like I have been reading and watching a lot of stuff about that particular topic, because I had these suicidal ideations when I lost my company. I really did think about this a lot. Did not plan for it, because when you there is this line, when you cross that line, that they start actually like thinking about how exactly you're going to do that, then it's you now entering the danger zone. I think just having I think it's actually almost, maybe not normal, but it happens quite often that we have, in bad situations, we can end up having suicide ideations, right?
Yeah.
And so what I was trying to say, we had an amazing conversation. We really connected on a very deep level, profoundly deep level. And then, although we did not agree on everything, because he was maybe a little bit more progressive, and I a little bit more conservative leaning, because these things overlap, right? There's always, especially in the, you can see this in these polling numbers right now. The men, how the gap between women and how the two of genders completely divide, right? It wasn't like that. I don't know. So there's a few questions I have for you. First of all, what do you think is the reason for this phenomenon, that just specifically midlife men? Because you brought up one reason, which is isolation and loneliness, and I think that is exactly one of the worst ones, I think, because we tend to, because men, as a reaction to the problems we face, we do isolate. I'm one of those. I mean, I went to Southeast Asia to get rid of my problems, but it can't be. I mean, it's not all. There's other factors involved too. What do you think is what are the most prevalent or important factors in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say first of all, it's going to vary from individual to individual. But if we look at midlife and the male experience for people who are in midlife now, because we also have to remember that attitudes and culture evolves and changes. But for people who are now, men who are now between like 45 and 65, they've probably got a very similar kind of upbringing and culture. So I think the factors that come to bear are, like you say, all the research says men are less good than women at maintaining social networks. Their social networks tend to be far smaller, and in fact, they shrink as they age. So that's a big problem. Even when they do have friends, they don't tend to open up about how they're really feeling. And then the next factor is, men don't tend to ask for help as readily as women. So, if you contrast, I'm going to generalize, but if you have a group of women and they're talking about their issues, they'll be very open talking about what those are. They'll go to see their doctor or get a coach or a therapist, whereas men tend to internalize a lot, and that's part cultural upbringing. So that's problem number one: isolation, lack of connection, internalizing. I think also for men, again, of our generation, there's a tendency to identify very strongly with your career, right? It's like I am my job, I am what I do. And the solidity, the security of a career isn't there in the same way as it was in maybe our father's time, Like my father, he joined a company and he stayed at it till he retired. But those days are largely gone. So we live in very uncertain times. And of course, when we have a business shock, maybe we're made redundant, maybe our business fails, then it feels like an attack on our identity itself.
Identity loss, total,
Yeah,
total shattered identity. Yes, happened to
yeah,
me.
yeah. And then we have the broader cultural thing of, how are we meant to be showing up in the world anyway? Because we've had, feminism came in, and, I'm not saying this is bad. Feminism came in, and maybe that tipped too far. We hear stories from places like the United States where men are even afraid to speak to women in case it's misinterpreted. So I think for people of our generation, the world can sometimes feel a bit of a confusing place, and we're not sure how we're meant to show up, and that kind of bleeds into that identity thing. The last point I think is testosterone, and this is really not looked at. There does seem to be a link between male suicides tend to have younger male suicides tend to have higher than normal testosterone levels. Older male suicides tend to have lower than normal testosterone levels. And of course, as we age, our testosterone declines. By the time we're in our 50s, our 60s, it could be 30 to 50% lower than it was in our 20s. So unlike for women where they have the menopause, it's happening in quite a compressed period of time, the symptoms are quite pronounced, it can be quite gradual, which means we don't notice it till actually there we are, like, oh, my mood is low, like, oh, I am more anxious. The world does seem a scarier place. I'm a bit slower than I was. My energy's gone. Maybe my libido's gone. And then all these things become psychological pressures as well. Although we're feeling like a physical state, it becomes psychological pressures as well. So I think there's not enough, we're not talking about the role of testosterone enough. If we look at the menopause experience for women, everyone knows, okay, that's down to estrogen and progesterone, and like HRT is the route forward for women if they're feeling bad. But for men, it's just kind of like, at the moment, it's a bit like, oh, it's just getting old. Just suck it up. So I think we have to start looking at how we are more proactive in educating men about understanding the role of testosterone and getting their levels checked from midlife onwards, and what they can do from a lifestyle perspective to help with that, and what the medical interventions are if they need that.
Yeah, lifestyle is, I do think that lifestyle plays a big role in that. Like I'm a lot more traditional in that. I think men should lift weights and be just, I mean, you brought feminism up, and I think this is also spot on, because there's almost this tendency for, like, you almost have to, like, preface, if you want to talk about men's issues, you almost have to preface it like acknowledging that, oh, I know that women also have it bad, but
Yeah, and Roman, that is actually something I've come up against a lot. So I've been trying to raise awareness of the andropause for about 4 or 5 years, and a lot of women are very open to it, of course, because they see that their father struggled with it, or their brother, or their husband, their boyfriend. They're like, oh wow, yeah, great, I can understand what's going on for him, and maybe I can help him. But there's also a certain section of women that are like, you're just trying to steal our menopause. This is our thing. Leave it alone. Men, you're just trying to co-opt something. And it's like, it is not a competition. It's not.
well,
It's a universal experience, and let's have some compassion towards each other.
yeah, but that compassion is seems to me, in that particular circle of feminism, it's very limited compassion. It's only very selective, I would say, is the word that you can describe it best. I'm not a big fan of feminists. Um, because of that, because I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in terms of how these topics are treated. Men who open up emotionally, because I think actually it's not a good idea. I also think not a good idea for men to open up with women emotionally, because it doesn't work. Because they sit there and say that we should, but when you do, you're gonna be punished for it, and that's just the reality. And so I do think when men's groups and men, we should have more men's spaces like that. That's really important, I think, and which is lacking. They've also been lost because of the aggressive progress of feminism, I guess. I mean, now it's almost you have to excuse yourself for having a Boy Scouts group or something like that. And it's really difficult to find these spaces nowadays, and they should exist, I think. But my question is also like, because you brought up another one very, very important, which is this male burden of performance, right? So we tend to identify ourselves with what we do and what we provide is part of our identity. And because it's so important for women, right? Because women choose and select men based on their capacity for being a good provider. It's just the reality. Let's just name it like as it is, right? So, and now when you lose that, then you're basically fucked.
Yeah.
And that really hits hard. I mean, it's just the reality, then. So now, not only am I not when I'm in my 40s, not only I'm not in shape anymore as I might have been like only a decade ago, but also I'm fucked because now I don't have any money. I've lost my business and I'm not attractive anymore and so now you've not a lot of things going for you, and that really is a problem psychologically speaking, right?
I think, yeah, I mean, if we want to look at that from an evolutionary perspective, I think that is certainly true. And I think this is one of the problems men face in the modern age. You know, we've had this kind of, I remember I think it was the 1990s, we had this thing called the new man who was going to be all sensitive and caring. And women were like, this is what we want. But then they were like, oh no, we don't like that. Then we had like, and I think we walk in a fine line here, right? So I want to pick up on the two points you made there. I think opening up about your feelings with your female partner, I think as men we have to be careful, right? What women don't want is someone that's just going to be like, I'm moaning and I feel helpless. But if we can actually take time to think about it ourselves, maybe first speak to friends about it, process it, sometimes it can be helpful because they pick up when something's wrong, right? They know when something's not right. You know what? I've been feeling this way for a while. This is what's going on for me, so you understand. But here's the important thing. But here's what I'm going to do about it. So you're kind of going, you're giving that security thing, this isn't a problem because I'm going to deal with it. And I think that's really important on that. But your second point about lack of man spaces and men's community, so true. And I think, yeah, feminism, one thing, but I think just the change in our culture. If you think, you know, I always say the agricultural revolution wasn't that long ago. And if you think about how our lives are structured then, we worked really hard when it was time to like sow the fields or whatever. And it was community. They would all do it together. Worked really hard when it was time to harvest and bring it all in. Celebration either side of that. And then it was kind of like, okay, let's let things go. But men got together to do stuff. We had things like churches where people regularly got together and it was community. All that's been lost largely. So we live in this digital age where the paradox is we're more connected than ever, yet more disconnected than ever.
Yeah.
I can speak to you on the other side of the world like this. It's amazing. But that real life, spending time with someone in their actual energy is what we're losing. I think we need to bring that back, particularly if we look at the way technology, AI, the workspace is evolving. We need to ensure the human experience stays.
Yes, totally agree. But I mean, because there's still a difference between scrolling through Instagram feed, which is this illusion of social media, which is like anti-social media, and then there's what we are having right now. This conversation is actually, I actually, to me, part of the reason why I do these podcasts is because I live in a country where I almost don't understand. I mean, they don't understand me, and I don't understand them. And so I do not have many friends here, to be honest. I'm just going to be blatantly honest. I don't have friends here, maybe 2 or 3 that I know, but a deep friendship, don't have. And so I started this podcast because I wanted to have, I mean, aside from those conversations I'm passionate about, it's also the connect. I'm really getting rewarded just having these, because even though I don't know you before, I didn't know you, now I do. I'm getting to know you. So, but that is a emotional reward for me, because that's a real. It's like if we were sitting on a table having a coffee and having this, not that different, because now we actually we have a human experience. That's what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
It's different from going through social media. Those are not the same things. So this is already from rewarding, like emotionally. So I walk away from this and I feel like I socialized. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, I know what you mean. And this is like the positive side of technology, right? And the good connection. But you're right. Social media is anti-social media, right? People are getting lost in this scroll hole. Never before in
Comparison,
human,
yeah.
yeah, comparison. As I say, never before in human history are we presented with everyone else's highlight reel of their so-called lives, And of course, if you watch that, you just start thinking, well, my life looks rubbish compared to this. But because we haven't got yet developed the capacity to go, well, this is just actually bullshit. It's
Real,
not real, not
not
real.
real. Yeah, it's not real. And so this is also because of this. I use these. I create. I want to talk about these rock bottom moments because when you see those, even if you see those successes and everyone tries to highlight their accomplishments and accolades and all of that, there there was always like often it comes from a place of pain and struggle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In both is, I mean, this is of course the successes we want to have those, but the dark part is also very interesting. It's good. It's good stuff. We should talk about more about that.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I love the dark part, but
Yeah.
here's the thing: most people are too afraid to look at it. But actually, like you say, it's where the gold is. It's where the greatest growth is. Because when it's easy to look at the light parts. Oh, look at this thing that went well, and I feel great when I think about it. Well, what about that thing that didn't go well that you feel really bad about? There's your learning.
Yes. So from a business standpoint, because you had a
Or do I still have you,
basically
Roman?
also your business was severely affected or was shut down or you lost it because of the pandemic too. Was that okay?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we were on course for, like I say, for our best ever year. We were 85% booked for the entire year, all our retreats. And running your own business is a struggle. It's like this, right?
Yeah.
And we were on the up curve finally, and we're like, wow. And then yeah, the
Crash.
world shut. We had to refund everyone their money. And yeah, we were left in a studio flat, like in central London, going, what do we do now? But that made us turn inward and look at what we could do, right? Rather than just sitting there and being like, oh, boo hoo. It's like, okay, I always try, what's the opportunity and the obstacle?
But now, did you stick to it? I mean, do you still you still a coaching business you have right now, right?
Yeah, so it's coaching business. So we work with clients one to one, and we go into organizations and do things like leadership or run workshops, retreats. We've gone back to, but rather than running like 15, 20 a year, we run 2 a year. So that's very, very different. Yeah.
Okay. And the topics, is this also male focused or is it more broadly your current focus or approach?
So they're more broad, so they're for either gender, but it's around the whole midlife thing. So looking at values, purpose, goals, where do you want to be, what's holding you back? Because I think one thing that is a shared experience, regardless of gender at midlife, certainly I hear all the time, is this feeling of lack of fulfillment or feeling a bit lost in life. And it's really interesting. Even people that have success, they're like, I got where I thought I wanted to get to. They're like, well, it actually feels a bit empty now I'm here. And have I sacrificed too much other stuff to get there? And then you've got the people that are like, wow, I thought by the time I hit 55, my life would look totally different, and I'm so disappointed. But it's okay. It's like, okay, well, where do you go from here? Because this isn't the end. There's years and years left to go, decades. So what are we going to do next? What are the opportunities there?
What are your what would you recommend someone who's going through a who's lost or his sense of purpose or who has lost his maybe also again coming from my own experience, I thought when I was building my first company that my purpose was revolutionizing the industry with nanotechnology. And then when that fell apart, then I was completely that and my identity was just lost. So I had like 2 full years not knowing, like just fucking. And so what would you say to someone who does not know what his purpose is?
Well, I would say the first thing is have compassion for yourself, because I think we're, in today's society, we're kind of told that everyone should have this purpose and it should be this really grand, noble thing, right? But sometimes it can be something as simple as being like, I'll be a great dad, I'll be a great mother. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm going to do this thing that will change the world, which is what we've been
Okay,
told. So that's the first.
I'm going to interrupt now.
Yeah.
I want to make this more difficult.
Okay.
What would you tell a single guy who
Yeah.
who hasn't got a family, who doesn't have, because let's be honest, the easiest way to have a purpose is to have a child.
Yeah. But that's a really bad reason to have a child, though.
Well,
And
depends on.
I see that mistake as well, by the way. People who have the child because they think it's going to fix things for them, and then they're like, now I've got a child, and I just feel the same way.
No, well, but
Yeah.
it does give you a lot of it does change a little bit your perspective on, because now you basically fulfilled your, well,
Biological purpose.
biological purpose was it exact. Thank you. But let's make it difficult. Like we were talking about
Yeah.
these male suicide, often
Yeah.
single, isolated. So that guy.
Okay. So I'd say the first thing is like understand that being lost, like I was saying, is like, our culture tells us that it's a bad thing and that we should have this noble endeavor. First of all, it's part of a normal human experience. A lot more people than you think feel lost. So first thing is go a bit easy on yourself. Have some self-compassion. And I'd say the thing is, when we're lost, right, we lose what we call psychological safety. Our subconscious wants us to feel safe all the time. So when we feel that we don't have a purpose, it'll be freaking out the whole time, which only increases our anxiety. So we need to calm it and go, look, it's okay. This is a moment in time, because what we don't want to do is go down the wrong path too quickly. So I'd say the first time, take the time you need. But then I'd say what you want to do is look at your values, because most of us, right, we really know what our values are when we're young. When we're idealistic, when we're teenagers, when we're in our 20s, we're like, these are my values and this informs what I'm going to do in my life. Like, and maybe you thought, one of my values is transforming health for everyone. I'm going to go and do this thing. But over time, our values change. And the thing is, we maybe haven't gone back and checked in on them. So maybe we had that value when we were 20 years old, but we don't have it now. So spend time. And this isn't easy work, but finding out what your key values are now. Because if you're living a life out of alignment with your values, you're always going to feel unfulfilled. So spend time learning your values. Once you have your values, it could be like, it could be like, I value being on my own, isolation, thinking lots, putting thoughts down, right? At the other extreme, it could be, no, I value community, being with people. I value running events, or, whatever. Find what those values are, and then start to take steps in the direction of things you can do that are going to fulfill those values. So once you have the values list, you can start to go, okay, what are the things that appeal to me in life? Because we've got things that we think, oh, I'd like to do that, I'd like to do this. But we have to check in and see, does that fit my values or not? If it does, then I'm a big believer in like taking action will breed further action. Sometimes you just have to get the ball rolling and start finding momentum with something.
Yeah, this is particularly true in the if one of these values you mentioned is entrepreneurship, of course, then because there is this saying that if we fail to plan, we plan to fail.
Yeah.
But I think this is only half true. Mostly it's a lack of action that does not. I mean, there's a lot of in business. There's a lot of when people talk about their ideas and business ideas, and they aren't really not worth anything until you take action, right? So you have to get out and put in the hours and fail fast and often, and then you can make iterations and stuff like that. And so but there's a lot of this is a very emotional topic, because it's such a you can't really get done. You can't get done anything if you're not. I mean, you can, but it's not going to be very useful or valuable, meaningful for you if you don't have this inner sense of, because I think it's because you said you can have a purpose, but sometimes it doesn't have to be something fancy. That might be true, but I don't know. I guess everyone is different in that regard. But
completely.
I just needed something that would also fulfill me again. And since the bar was so high with my first company, And with this nano, then I I felt so lost, so I couldn't find any. But yeah, I mean, I guess everyone is. This is a very, you can't really give someone a recipe for this because it's such a deeply personal thing, right? You need to be
Yeah.
to come and there's this. I have a friend, one of the few people that helped me, a psychologist from Mexico. I said that he once said there's always for everything there's a gestation period. Like this, you cannot force it. It just needs to, like a cocoon, right? It just needs to develop, and if you push it, it dies. It won't happen the way you intend it to happen. So yeah, but it's hard to have patience when everything's fucking terrible, right? So yeah,
It is, and this is where like the values work is so important. It's like having your inner compass, right? If you haven't checked your compass, it's easy to go off course. But if you keep coming back to your inner compass, you're going to stay on course. But patience is another thing. Advertising industry, technology, social media is undoing. We're all impatient because we're all told that the results should come now, right? And we're used to it in the Western world. I want to order any kind of food here in central London. I just have to push some buttons on my phone and it's on my doorstep in 15, 20 minutes. I want to go dating. I can just get an app and I can start swiping and there's people I can match with. This is the kind of society where people don't want to put the effort anymore and they don't want to wait to be patient, but the universe, gods, they have their own timing, and sometimes we have to acknowledge that. And like your wise friend said there, acknowledge this gestation period. And listen, this is my biggest thing I have to work on. I am impatient to the max, and I'm like,
me too.
oh, right, let me try this thing. Bang, bang, bang. Oh, it hasn't worked. Right, let me try this thing. And actually, if I just stayed on the one thing and kept doing it for longer, it probably would have worked. But I've switched too quickly, and I
Same
see
here.
so many people doing this, right? So many people, because we're
Yeah,
bombarded by this messaging all the time that, yeah, find a way, find a way, find a way. It should be quick, 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 quick. But, I use the analogy of going back to, you wouldn't plant a seed in the ground and then go back a few days later and dig it up to see if it's growing yet, and then put it back in and dig it up again. You plant the seed and, you water it, whatever, that's doing the actions around what you need to do, but you give it the time to grow. Some things will grow at a steady rate, but I always like some things are like bamboo, right? Which is what I don't know if it's true, but I heard like for the first 5, 6 years, nothing happens. You see nothing, and then it will grow like 8 feet in a couple of months.
yeah,
And
yeah.
life's like that sometimes.
Nature is one of the best teachers here. I mean, we should be more aware of these natural, I don't know how to call it, but processes, right?
Yeah,
That are
yeah,
also part of ourselves, right? So because
yeah.
we're part of this world, even though it doesn't seem to be sometimes.
Yeah, I know. And probably our ancestors were a lot more in touch with it because, well, A, they didn't have technology telling them different, but B, they lived more in a natural life in cycle with the seasons and with nature. So they understood these things. It's like, if I want a crop of wheat, I got to go and plant it at this time and then look after the field and wait and then harvest it. They understood it's a long process. You don't just go, oh, I want wheat. I'll go out and get some wheat. I'll have it by tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. But in the modern age, we're like, I want it all now. And it's not
Yeah,
helpful.
no, it's not helpful. This is why I like Bali here, to live in Bali, because the people in Bali, they're really connected to nature. Like the way they sometimes you just go out and then it doesn't have to be a particularly special day, and then you just stop. The traffic stops. Why? Because they're walking on some Hindu whatever ceremony, and then everyone needs to stop, and then sometimes you wait a half an hour, you can't move, and then it's over, right? Or they have these like little offerings they prepare every day, flowers and stuff, and they put it in front of your door. And even though I'm not even a Hindu and I'm a stranger, they still put it in front of my door because though I'm protected from it's just very detailed. And there's a different rhythm here going on.
Yeah.
This is a different. It's I think it's healthier. They smile more. They laugh more.
Yeah.
It's you can tell by how the family are like the family unit is not fucked up, and like in Germany where everything is going down. I don't. I'm actually pretty pessimistic when it comes to a Western world right now,
Yeah.
because we're not in a. I don't know. It's maybe I should be more optimistic, but I'm not.
I think it's good to be a realist. And here's the other thing I say, we have to be realistic with world events. It's easy to let anxiety about those come in and get negative. But actually, we have to recognize that really, as an individual, maybe we don't have that much control over what's happening. We can voice our opinions, but
We
do we have
don't.
actual control? So then, what are the controllables in our own life that we can control? And let's focus on those instead.
Yeah,
But
that's
I hear
true.
you. I do hear you, and it's really interesting because I obviously spent like 10 years living in Spain, and
Speak Spanish?
I do speak some Spanish. Yeah.
Ah, muy bien.
Muy
También.
bien. But you see that even over there, even the difference of a few hundred kilometers or whatever it is, I think that Northern European Protestant work ethic that Britain has, it's kind of like, oh, you live to work, you live
Hustle.
to work, and it's all about that. Whereas in Spain, they're like, nah, I'm just going to take a long lunch with the family and not go back to the office, and it's fine. Everyone does it, and you're kind of like, well, I know that probably it's the same in Germany, but in the UK, the perception was like, oh, they're so lazy down there. But actually, like they're saying in Bali, have they got it right? It's more important to them that they spend their time with their friends and their family than they do working.
Yes, it's yeah, yeah, yeah. I've spent. I mean, I lived a lot, 20 years of my life in Mexico, so I know the
Oh, wow.
culture. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm half You could call me half Mexican here.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, it's true. The Mexicans are very much the Spanish Latin mentality is very pervasive, because they have this. I like it because they're open, like they're warm, and
Yeah.
they invite you in, and then they have way more like outgoing personalities, rather than where with the Germans and the English I think are pretty similar
Very
in
similar. Yeah. We're very
so
similar.
work ethics, and reserved, and like a little bit too
A
have.
bit miserable.
Yeah, I was complaining a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe the English have a little bit better sense of humor than the Germans. I don't know. But particularly now in Germany, it's horrible. All the young Germans entrepreneurs are leaving right now.
Same in the UK. Same in the UK.
They're just I mean, here in Bali, you find it's like an exodus here. Like English, a lot of English people too. Yeah, they're coming
Yeah.
here and
Yeah.
building, opening. I mean, I know one who's got his Germany opened he's a lawyer, and then he basically he only focuses on opening companies for other Germans. So this is his agency work. It doesn't do any other stuff. Like he basically just brings in all the Germans so they can open their companies here, and then that's
Oh,
all he does.
fantastic. Yeah. Find what works for you. So you can find me at our website, which is themidlifementors.com, all one word. You'll find a contact form there. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can take an audit there, which will give you a personalized report on kind of what's going on for your life. And you can find out about my book. If you want my book, The Midlife Male Handbook, A Man's Guide to Thriving Through Andropause, that is available at all good bookshops. But of course, the main one everyone goes to is Amazon.
Okay, amazing. Thank you
Great.
so much for sharing all of that and your journey. And yeah, I really appreciate having you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Roman. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me on.
Take care. Bye bye.